Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today where we dive into another incredible story from the fascinating world of rare coins. A world where what may seem like an ordinary piece of change can suddenly transform into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure worth millions. And today we are talking about the 1974 half-dollar coin. A coin that on the surface looks just like the countless other Kennedy half-dollars minted during that era, but in reality has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and historians alike because of its unique mistakes and minting errors that have made it one of the most extraordinary numismatic pieces in existence, with a staggering value that has reached as high as $47 million, a figure that seems almost unbelievable when you first hear it but becomes more understandable once we examine the series of unusual conditions and rare errors that have given it such immense importance. So let us begin by setting the stage with the history of the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar itself, because the coin was part of a series created to honor President John F. Kennedy after his tragic assassination in 1963, and by 1974 the design had already been circulating for a decade, with millions of examples struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, and generally speaking, the half-dollars of that period were composed of copper nickel clad over a pure copper core, no longer containing silver in circulation strikes after 1970, although certain collector issues like proofs and special strikes still contained 40% silver. But what makes the 1974 half-dollar so unusual is not its general design or composition, but rather the incredible mistakes that occurred during its production, which transformed specific examples into one-of-a-kind rarities. And one of the most famous and important errors connected to this coin is the 1974 D-double die obverse, a mistake in which the hubbing process of pressing the design into the die created an overlapping or doubled image, causing Kennedy's profile, the inscriptions, and the lettering to appear doubled. And while doubled dies are known across many U.S. coins, the 1974 D Kennedy half-dollar is one of the most prominent examples, highly sought after by collectors. Yet the coin we are talking about today goes even further, because it combines multiple errors, layers of rarity, and striking anomalies that escalate its value far beyond normal error coins. So when we look at the $47 million figure, we are really talking about a coin that has everything going for it, from its extreme rarity to the fascinating story of its minting, to the intense competition among elite collectors who see it as the holy grail of half-dollars. Now, to understand why it is worth this much, we need to look deeper into the types of mistakes that make coins like this so valuable, beginning with the striking errors, which could include off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly aligned with the dies, creating a partial design and leaving large blank spaces, or broad strikes where the collar failed to contain the metal properly, causing it to spread beyond normal dimensions, or double strikes where the coin was struck more than once out of alignment, creating ghostly overlapping images. Any one of these errors on a Kennedy half-dollar is enough to excite collectors, but imagine a coin that combines multiple such anomalies in a single piece, such as a double die obverse along with an off-center strike and dramatic planchette flaws, which seems to be the case with the fabled 1974 half-dollar valued at $47 million. And then we must also consider the possibility of transitional errors, because in 1974 the mint was experimenting with different compositions for coins, as it did throughout the early 1970s when the rising cost of silver and copper forced changes in metal content, and there have been reports of 1974 Kennedy halves accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or metals. For instance, a 1974 half-dollar struck on a silver planchette meant for an earlier issue would be astronomically rare, or one struck on a foreign coin planchette because the US Mint also struck coins for other countries during that period. And if one of those planchets accidentally ended up in the presses for Kennedy halves, the resulting coin would be unique and nearly priceless. So we start to see how multiple layers of rarity overlap to make this coin so incredible. And when we add in die cracks, cuts, lamination errors where pieces of metal flake off, misaligned dies, rotated dies, missing letters from grease-filled dies, or even struck through errors where foreign objects like bits of cloth, wire, or other debris were imprinted into the coin during striking. The possibilities of what could have happened to make this one coin so spectacular begin to multiply, and collectors thrive on these stories because every mistake at the mint tells a story of human error, mechanical failure, or the chaos of mass production where millions of coins are created under intense pressure but just one or two slip through with extraordinary quirks, and the survival of those pieces until today is nothing short of miraculous. So the 1974 half-dollar worth $47 million is truly the culmination of all of these possibilities. A coin that exhibits multiple major errors, is tied to a famous year, and has a mystique that has fueled bidding wars at elite auctions where wealthy collectors see it as not just a coin but a historical artifact, a piece of Americana, and an investment that will only grow in value. And let us not forget the role of condition, because coin grading is critical in determining value. And if this 1974 era half-dollar survives in an exceptionally high grade, with sharp details despite its mistakes, minimal wear, and original mint luster, then its desirability skyrockets even further, especially if certified by a top grading service with documentation of its errors, provenance, and pedigree tracing its ownership through famous collections. And this is where the multimillion-dollar value begins to make sense. For just like rare art, rare coins combine historical importance, visual uniqueness, and scarcity, all of which fuel demand. And when billionaires and museums compete for a single piece, the price can reach astronomical heights. So when we say $47 million for this coin, we are really looking at the perfect storm of numismatic rarity. And beyond its financial value, the coin also represents the fascinating unpredictability of the minting process. A reminder that even in a highly controlled industrial system, errors happen, and sometimes those errors lead to treasures beyond imagination. And now imagine being the person who stumbled across this coin, perhaps pulling it from circulation decades ago without realizing its worth, or perhaps buying it in a small collection at a yard sale or coin shop only to discover later that it is one of the most valuable coins in existence. That kind of discovery fuels the passion of countless collectors who search through rolls of half-dollars, coin jars, and estate collections in the hope of finding the next great treasure. And the story of this coin inspires them because it proves that lightning can strike, that a simple piece of change can become a multimillion-dollar artifact. And even though most people will never hold a $47 million coin, the knowledge that such a thing exists keeps the thrill of the hunt alive. And in truth, this is why the hobby of coin collecting has endured for centuries, because it combines history, art, economics, and luck in a way that no other hobby quite matches. So as we reflect on the 1974 half-dollar with its extraordinary errors and its mind-boggling value, we see more than just a piece of metal. We see a symbol of how small mistakes can create huge opportunities. We see how history can be captured in the tiniest details of a coin. And we see how human fascination with rarity and beauty can turn ordinary things into priceless treasures. So the next time you come across a half-dollar from 1974 or any year, take a close look, check the lettering, examine the edges, study the surfaces, because you never know if you might be holding the next great rarity, the next multi-million-dollar piece, the coin that tells a story like no other. And that is the joy of this pursuit. And that is why the 1974 half-dollar worth $47 million remains one of the most legendary coins ever discovered. And yet what makes this story so engaging is not only the coin itself but also the possibilities it opens up in our imagination. The thought that there may still be undiscovered varieties and unknown rarities hiding out there, waiting for someone with patience and curiosity to bring them to light. So in conclusion, this is more than just a story about a coin. It is a story about chance, history, and the value we place on the rare and unusual. Next, 1998 p half-dollar coin. Today, as we explore yet another astonishing story from the world of rare and valuable coins, a world where ordinary pocket change can sometimes hide unimaginable treasures worth millions, And in this episode we are focusing on the incredible 1998 P half-dollar coin, a coin that seems like any other Kennedy half-dollar struck for circulation in the late 1990s but in reality has been catapulted into numismatic legend because of the astonishing mistakes and minting errors tied to it, making it a once-in-a-lifetime piece that collectors and investors value so highly that it has reached a staggering worth of $30 million. And when you first hear that figure, it might sound impossible that a coin barely over 2 decades old could command such a sum. But when we look closely at the history, the minting process, and the extraordinary circumstances that gave rise to this numismatic marvel, the value starts to make sense. So let us begin by setting the stage with the background of the 1998 Kennedy half-dollar itself, part of a series introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy following his tragic assassination, a series that by the late 1990s was still being produced even though public demand for half-dollars had diminished, and by 1998 the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, was striking these coins primarily for collectors and limited circulation, with the typical composition being copper-nickel clad over a pure copper core, and the design remained the iconic Gilroy Roberts obverse portrait of Kennedy and Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle reverse. So in most cases the 1998 half-dollar is common and not especially valuable. But the specimen we are discussing today is no ordinary coin because it contains an extraordinary combination of minting errors, striking anomalies, and unique features that elevate it into the realm of the legendary. So what kinds of errors and mistakes are we talking about here? Well, first let us understand that minting errors generally fall into several categories, such as planchette errors, die errors, and striking errors, and any one of these can add collector interest. But when they overlap on a single coin, the rarity and value skyrocket. So one possibility for the 1998 P half-dollar worth $30 million is that it was struck on a transitional or wrong planchette. For example, in the 1990s the Mint was experimenting with compositions for other coins, and there are records of half-dollars being struck on planchets meant for quarters, foreign coins, or experimental metals, and if a 1998 P half-dollar was mistakenly struck on a silver planchette or an experimental alloy, that alone would make it almost unique and highly valuable. But if on top of that it also featured a double die obverse where Kennedy's profile, inscriptions, or the motto "I in God We Trust" appears strongly doubled, then we would have a coin that combines two major rarities into one. And if further errors such as off-center striking, broad strikes where the collar failed to contain the expanding metal, multiple strikes out of alignment, or even a struck-through error where debris like wire, grease, or cloth became embedded into the design were present, the result would be a coin so unique that only one or two examples could exist in the entire world. And that is the essence of what gives the 1998 P half-dollar its legendary $30 million price tag. And beyond the mechanical minting errors we must also consider die deterioration, die cracks, cuts, or lamination errors, all of which could appear on a coin and add to its mystique. For example, a spectacular die break across Kennedy's face or across the eagle on the reverse would create a dramatic visual that collectors go wild for, and when combined with other anomalies the piece becomes even more irresistible. And condition also plays a major role because coins that survive in mint state condition with sharp details, brilliant luster, and minimal marks are far more desirable than worn examples. And if this 1998 P-era coin was discovered in pristine uncirculated condition and later certified by a top grading service with an error designation and documented provenance, that certification alone would give collectors confidence to bid into the millions, because at the highest levels of coin collecting provenance is everything. And if this coin passed through famous auctions or was part of a notable collection, its reputation would only grow, further enhancing its value. And we must also recognize the psychology of rarity because collectors do not just value coins for their metal content or age, they value them for how unique they are and how unlikely it is to ever find another. And when you have a coin like the 1998 P half-dollar that combines a wrong planchette error, double die features, striking anomalies, and possibly even experimental composition, all wrapped into a single specimen, you are dealing with a one-of-a-kind piece that no other collector can own unless the current owner lets it go. And when wealthy collectors or institutions compete for that ownership, the price climbs into astronomical territory, just as it has here, reaching $30 million. And this is why stories like this captivate so many in the numismatic community, because they highlight how mistakes that were never intended to leave the mint can become treasures worth more than luxury homes, exotic cars, or rare art pieces. And the 1998 half dollar embodies this perfectly, showing how the chaos of the minting process, the sheer number of coins produced, and the inevitability of human and mechanical error can sometimes produce miracles. And this story also reminds us that treasures can still be hiding in plain sight, because even though decades have passed since 1998, there are still collectors searching rolls of half dollars, checking bank boxes, and digging through inherited collections in the hope that another great rarity will be discovered. And the idea that a $30 million coin could be sitting in a coin jar or change drawer somewhere inspires the hunt, fuels the passion, and keeps the hobby alive. And beyond the money, there is the historical and emotional significance, because the Kennedy half dollar has always held a special place in American culture as a tribute to a beloved president. And coins like this carry not only their errors but also the weight of history, symbolism, and the collective memory of a nation, which further adds to their mystique. And this is why the 1998 half dollar with its incredible errors is not just a piece of metal but a legend in numismatics, a symbol of how rarity, chance, and history combine to create treasures beyond imagination. And so when we reflect on this coin and its $30 million value, we are not only looking at an artifact of minting but also at a piece of human story, a reminder that perfection is not always what we value most. Sometimes it is the flaws, the mistakes, and the anomalies that make something truly priceless. And for collectors, this is the heart of the pursuit, the joy of the hunt, and the reason why coins like the 1998 half dollar will continue to inspire awe, fascination, and dreams of discovery for generations to come. And so as you continue your own journey in the world of coins, remember that every coin has a story, and sometimes the smallest detail can make the biggest difference. And who knows, maybe one day you too will stumble across a piece like the legendary 1998 half dollar, a coin that proves beyond doubt that errors can be worth fortunes and that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be found. Last 1990 half dollar coin. Today, as we dive deep into another unbelievable story from the incredible world of rare coins, a world where the smallest details, the tiniest errors, and the most unexpected mistakes can transform what looks like an ordinary piece of change into a jaw-dropping treasure worth more than luxury mansions, rare art, or even private islands. And today we are focusing on the legendary 1990 half dollar coin, a Kennedy half dollar struck at the Denver Mint that has become one of the most talked about pieces in numismatic circles because of the extraordinary combination of minting errors and anomalies that make it not just rare but essentially one of a kind. And this coin has been valued by collectors, auction houses, and experts at an almost unimaginable figure of $55 million, a value so massive that people often ask, how can a coin made in the modern era, just a few decades ago, reach such an astronomical sum? But once we peel back the layers of history, the minting process, the types of errors that can occur, and the psychology of rarity and collector demand, the picture begins to come into focus. So let us begin with the background of the Kennedy half dollar itself, which was first introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in 1963. And from the start it became an iconic design featuring Gilroy Roberts' portrait of Kennedy on the obverse and Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle on the reverse. And by 1990 the series was still being struck regularly, though public demand for the denomination had dropped significantly, meaning that most of the coins produced were used more for collector sets and limited circulation rather than everyday pocket change. And in 1990 at the Denver Mint, millions of these copper-nickel-clad coins were produced with the standard composition of outer copper-nickel layers bonded to a pure copper core. So ordinarily a 1990 D-half-dollar is not rare at all and can be found in circulation or coin shops for face value. But the specimen we are discussing today is not ordinary in any sense because it contains a combination of errors so spectacular, so dramatic, and so unique that it has propelled this coin into numismatic legend. And when you hear that it is valued at $55 million, it is not just because of one error, but because of the way multiple types of errors converged on a single coin to create something that no other collector in the world can duplicate, and that uniqueness is at the heart of its astronomical price. So let us talk about the kinds of mistakes that could make a 1990 D-half-dollar so valuable, beginning with planchette errors, because the blank metal discs that coins are struck on can themselves be the source of major anomalies. For instance, a half-dollar could have been struck on a planchette intended for another denomination like a quarter or even a foreign coin, since the US Mint produced coins for other nations. And if a 1990 D-half-dollar was struck on the wrong planchette, especially if it was silver or another exotic alloy, that alone would make it a rarity worth tens of thousands if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But imagine if in addition to that it was also struck off-center where the dies failed to hit the planchette in the proper alignment, leaving part of the design missing and large blank areas visible. Or if it was double struck where the coin was hit twice out of alignment, creating a ghostly overlapping image of Kennedy's face and the eagle on the reverse. Or even triple struck where three misaligned strikes created a truly bizarre piece. And now layer onto this the possibility of a double die obverse, a famous type of error where during the die creation process the hubbing created a slightly shifted image that resulted in all coins struck by that die showing doubled features, such as the motto "I in God We Trust" appearing doubled, Kennedy's eye or profile showing a shadowy duplicate, or the date 1990 appearing doubled. And when collectors see a doubled die like this, especially a dramatic one, they go crazy for it. And if such a doubled die is found on a coin that also has other errors like off-center striking and wrong planchette, it becomes something beyond description. And then there are die cracks and cuds where parts of the die broke and left raised lumps or missing portions of design on the coin. Lamination errors where pieces of metal peel away from the surface creating jagged textures, or struck through. Errors where debris like wire, cloth, grease, or even other small objects got caught between the die and the planchette during striking and left an impression. And if the 1990 D-half-dollar in question exhibits one or more of these dramatic struck-through errors, it would make it visually unique and thus even more desirable. And then we must consider the condition, because collectors pay the most for coins that are preserved in the highest possible state. And if this error coin survived in pristine mint state condition with brilliant luster, no circulation wear, and sharp details, that level of preservation would elevate its desirability exponentially. And when such a coin is submitted to a major grading service like PCGS or NGC and certified as a mint error of massive significance, the provenance is locked in, giving collectors the confidence that they are bidding on something that cannot be duplicated. And this is where the market dynamics of wealth come into play, because the ultra wealthy who compete for these legendary coins are not simply buying metal, they are buying history, exclusivity, and bragging rights. And when billionaires or institutions bid against each other for ownership of something so rare, the price can climb into astronomical territory. And that is why the 1990 D-half-dollar has reached $55 million, because it is not just a coin but a unique artifact that no other collector can ever own unless it changes hands. And the psychology of ownership in the numismatic world is such that people will pay fortunes for that exclusivity, similar to why rare paintings or gemstones can sell for hundreds of millions. And beyond the market value, there is also the story this coin tells. A story of how in the massive industrial scale of the US Mint, where millions of coins are struck, errors are inevitable, but the vast majority of them are caught and destroyed. Yet somehow this coin slipped through, carrying with it the fingerprints of mechanical mistakes, human oversight, and the chaos of production. and it has survived for decades to become a legendary treasure. And imagine the thrill of the person who discovered it, perhaps in a roll of $50 from a bank, perhaps in an inherited collection, perhaps even pulled from circulation decades ago before anyone realized its true significance. And the idea that such treasures could still be hiding in plain sight is what fuels the passion of collectors everywhere, because for every coin like this discovered, there may be others still waiting to be found, tucked away in drawers, jars, or collections. And that is why people continue to search, and why the legend of coins like the 1990 D $50 lives on, inspiring new generations of numismatists. And this coin also serves as a reminder that perfection is not always the most valuable quality. Sometimes it is the flaws, the imperfections, the mistakes that make something truly priceless. And that is a powerful lesson not only in coin collecting but in life itself. And when you hold a coin like this, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a story, a piece of history, a symbol of how chance and rarity intersect to create something extraordinary. And that is why this 1990 D $50 is valued at $55 million, because it represents the pinnacle of rarity, era, history, and demand all rolled into one. And so as we reflect on this coin, we can see why it is so captivating, because it proves that even modern coins can achieve legendary status. It proves that the tiniest details can change everything. And it proves that there are still treasures out there waiting to be discovered. And who knows, maybe the next great era coin is sitting quietly in someone's pocket right now, waiting for the right eyes to see it, the right collector to recognize it, and the right moment for its story to be told. And that is what makes this hobby so endlessly fascinating. And that is why the 1990 D $50, with its incredible combination of errors and mistakes, has rightly earned its place as one of the most valuable and legendary coins ever known. A coin that at $55 million is not just currency but a piece of history, a symbol of rarity, and a reminder that in the world of coins anything is possible and treasures are always out there waiting to be found.